I'll try to keep this intro short this time. This iceberg is an amalgamation of several others I found on a quick Google search. I took what I felt were the most interesting topics, at least further down on the list, and made a new one based on that. This will most likely be standard practice for all future icebergs on this channel. Media-based icebergs are some of my favorites. You know, when they're done right. And by that, I mean it actually focuses on the lore of the games, not just filling up the layers with,
"Guys, did you know one time Bungie was prototyping a Halo game for the Nintendo DS?"
To me, that's not interesting. I want to know about the deep lore, the fan theories, the speculations of in-game concepts. Not about how Sony made a toaster for The Last of Us. So with this iceberg, I'm going to be covering almost entirely nothing but in-universe topics. With that, let's begin. The sky. Subjects here are front and center within the games. Fans of the media will know these topics well. Black Mesa. Black Mesa is an American research company located in the deserts of New Mexico. A large portion of its function is towards the U.S. military-industrial complex, developing weapons and energy technology. As well as this, Black Mesa delves into subjects such as radiation, theoretical physics, lasers, experimental propulsion, hydraulics, robotics, hydroelectricity, genetics, zoology, and more. Of course, the military development side of things is cloaked in secrecy, with advanced weapons and teleportation tech. Black Mesa's logo is directly referencing what its name is based on, a mesa-style mountain against the sky. For its time, whether Half-Life 1 takes place in the late 90s or early 2000s, depending on what continuity you prefer, Black Mesa's technology level dwarfs what was available at the time, if you consider Half-Life taking place in a similar universe as ours. The fact that they have autonomous robots, energy weapons like the Tau cannon, and interdimensional portal capabilities, this puts Black Mesa at the top of the technology curve in the world, only challenged by Aperture Science. Resonance Cascade. The Resonance Cascade is a linchpin event in the Half-Life series that allowed the Combine to find and invade Earth. Upon inserting an incredibly pure sample of a Zen crystal into the anti-mass spectrometer, this caused a quantum cataclysm that shook the very fabric of space-time. The Zen crystals themselves, harvested from the border world, were discovered to contain materials unknown to this universe that were entangled across untold dimensions. Upon insertion into the AMS, the crystal's quantum superposition collapsed, sinking Earth and Zen. As each dimension's resonance began to synchronize, the boundaries between the two weakened, allowing holes to be opened. The vibration of each dimension's quantum fields caused a bleed-through of reality between the two. Teleportation events ran rampant within the Black Mesa compound, as well as the immediate surrounding area. From Gordon Freeman's notes on his desk, every object has a set resonance. When excited by specific forms of energy of the correct frequency, it will resonate, and the amplitude of the vibrations will grow. During the insertion experiment, the AMS was posted far beyond safe operation levels, up to 105%, compared to previous safe maximum levels of 90%. Upon contact with the beam from the spectrometer, the crystal began to resonate at an uncontrollable rate, which caused the spectrometer to become unresponsive and overload. After the initial cascade, an attempt at stemming the portal openings, Black Mesa scientists launched a missile equipped with a Xenium resonator into orbit, with the hopes of stabilizing the rift in space-time. However, it appears that this attempt didn't work, due to the fact that something else was holding the rift open. The resonance cascade and its consequences were felt across the world in the following days. Within 7 hours of an unknown date shortly after the events of the Black Mesa incident, humanity was all but defeated, and surrendered. Dr. Kleiner. Dr. Kleiner is a character appearing in Half-Life 1 through Episode 2, one of the few survivors of the Black Mesa incident. Described as an absent-minded genius, his knowledge and work on teleportation technology is bar none. Upon the return of Gordon Freeman in Half-Life 2, we discover that Kleiner is one of the key members of the human resistance, utilizing local teleportation technology, of which even the Combine are incapable of. Kleiner first worked as a professor at MIT, one of the many mentors of none other than Freeman. Sometime after his employment at MIT, Kleiner began work at the Sector C test labs of Black Mesa, working closely with another MIT friend, Eli Vance. Whether during his time at MIT or Black Mesa, Kleiner not only featured on the cover of Popular Scientist, but also published his own book, From Here to There in Under a Second. Kleiner's survival of the Black Mesa incident is a mystery, given that in opposing forces, Black Mesa is seemingly destroyed by a nuclear explosion, though whether you consider the Gearbox games canon is up for debate. Sometime after his escape from the compound and surviving the 7-hour war as well, he and many others from Black Mesa relocated to City 17. Gordon Freeman. Gordon Freeman is the titular character of the Half-Life games. Born in Seattle, Washington, Gordon had a fascination with theoretical physics, quantum mechanics, and relativity, even at an early age. As stated in the Kleiner entry, Gordon attended MIT, earning a PhD in theoretical physics. His thesis earning him this title being Observation of Einstein-Podolsky-Rosen entanglement on superquantum structures by induction through nonlinear transuranic crystals of extremely long wavelength, pulse from mode-locked source array, relative and related to each other after very short duration, extremely long wavelength pulse by an arrangement of crystals with an atomic number greater than 92 without coming into physical contact with the structures in question. Yeah, that's an MIT student for you. After graduating MIT, Gordon traveled to the Institute for Experimental Physics in Innsbruck, Austria. However, due to slow progress being made by the Institute, he begins searching for areas outside of the educational sphere to research teleportation. Dr. Kleiner, at this point working at Black Mesa, offers Freeman a job, who takes it, hoping that the much larger funding of the projects will lead to faster development of civilian applications. Before the events of Half-Life, Gordon obtains a Level 3 research position, including on-site dormitories and a classified assignment for anomalous materials research. Gordon and security guard Barney Calhoun would often compete with each other when trying to recover Dr. Kleiner's keys whenever he locked them in his office, which seemed to occur often. The duo would find increasingly unconventional means of achieving this, such as crawling through ventilation shafts. During the events of Half-Life, Freeman put his MIT knowledge to work by climbing a ladder, pressing a button, and pushing a cart. Despite the fact that Gordon has little weapons training, during the Black Mesa incident, Freeman utilizes an assortment of not only human weapons, but Zen weapons as well, and is not only able to overpower military strike forces, but overwhelming alien numbers. I want to take a second here to voice a particular thought I had. Could you imagine being Gordon? You're 27 at the time of Half-Life 1, your whole life is ahead of you, and in one instance, not only do you set off a cataclysmic event, but in the course of 2 days, you are forced to face the horrors of an alternate dimension, fight through the US military, and kill a being of impossible knowledge and power. No one deserves a break more than this guy. Barney Calhoun. Barney Calhoun is one of the many security guards employed at Black Mesa and the main protagonist of Half-Life Blue Shift. In his early life, he was an undecided major at Martinson College, later employed by Black Mesa as a mid-level security guard. Barney was assigned to the Blue Shift position several days before the Black Mesa incident. It's noted that Barney is one of, if not the only security guard from Black Mesa to survive the incident. Barney's role is much more centered on escaping the facility than stopping the assault from Zen. While he does travel to the border world in order to allow for teleportation out of the facility, his time there is limited compared to others like Gordon Freeman. However, he successfully completes his mission and is able to escape Black Mesa with several other scientists. Barney is able to survive the coming portal storms and the 7-hour war, and later relocates to City 17, where he joins Civil Protection, albeit collecting info on Combine movements for the Resistance. Thankfully, Barney happened to be stationed at the train depot that Gordon Freeman was reinserted by the G-Man at, keeping Gordon from getting a one-way express train to Nova Prospect, though given what the G-Man is known for, it's doubtful that this was coincidence. Adrian Shepard. Adrian Shepard is a Marine in the United States military, and the main protagonist of Half-Life: Opposing Force. At first sent in to cover up the incident, Shepard's mission is quickly abandoned after his Osprey is destroyed by an alien aircraft. He, along with the rest of the Black Mesa personnel, are now in a fight for survival against Zen and the game's specific Race X. Prior to the events of Half-Life, Shepard has a few diary entries. March 3rd. Another typically hellish day at base camp. I'll be glad when this is over and I can finally get assigned a mission. There's been this really weird civvy spotted at the base. Rumor is he's from some government branch looking to recruit. Others say he's with some secret research. I would jump at the chance to join. Be cool just for the change and the adventure. March 7th. I finally saw the government guy today. I'm not sure he is a G-Man, but he was wearing a really uptight suit and carrying a briefcase. He looked more like a lawyer or insurance agent to me. I did notice him checking me out. Several times throughout the day, I spotted him just watching me during training. What is he up to? March 9th. For weeks, our drills have been the same crap every day. Today we assembled for morning run, and our drill instructor tells us we have 1 week to become experts at indoor strategic combat. We will be spending every day this week at the combat simulation facility. As far as I know, this is a specialized training not taught in boot camp. What I want to know is if this is to test our ability to adapt, or if we're being readied for a specific mission. Time will tell. March 12th. The rumors have been flying since our indoor combat training began. Most of my peers are convinced that we are being primed for a mission. No one can agree on what the mission is. I've heard the name Black Mesa facility thrown around a lot, but I have no information about the place. The rumors are that some top secret research is going on there. Honestly, it doesn't sound too exciting to me. March 15th. The rumors have been confirmed. We are being trained for a mission at the Black Mesa facility. All I know is that the place is being used by scientists who are doing some kind of new research. I can't imagine what we would be needed for. We were told today to be ready in case it happens tomorrow. I don't know what it is, but the whole thing is a little strange. I kind of hope it doesn't happen. The mission doesn't seem to have much excitement potential. I'd rather hold out for something with a little more likelihood of combat. While attempting to escape the doomed facility, Shepard becomes aware that a Black Ops team has been sent in to nuke Black Mesa, to which he is able to thwart this plan, temporarily. He later witnesses the G-Man rearming the nuclear warhead. Rather than trying to disarm it again, Shepard is sent to kill the Gene Worm, far below in the Black Mesa facility, the linchpin of Race X, able to assimilate resources to its own purposes. Shepard is able to kill the creature and is teleported into an Osprey in the company of the G-Man, who takes notes of his skills. A bright flash in the distance implies the detonation of the nuclear bomb. After this, Adrian Shepard is employed under the G-Man. Eli Vance. Eli Vance is one of the many scientists employed at Black Mesa, later one of the key members of the human resistance. Like Kleiner and Gordon, Eli also attended and graduated MIT, sometime later being employed at Black Mesa. Eli Vance is one of, if not the only named character in the games known to have a family prior to and after the incident. His wife, Azane, and Alex lived with him on site. He was one of the many scientists to voice their concerns about the insertion experiment that fateful day.
When he brought in that crystal, I knew I should have aborted that damn test, but I didn't.
Just after the resonance cascade, Eli sends Gordon on a mission to the surface to get help. After this point, how people like Kleiner and Eli escaped the facility is unknown, most likely able to go through the wake of destruction Freeman left behind him, allowing them to safely escape. However, of his family, only Eli and Alex were able to make it out, Azane being killed during the incident by unknown means. Upon escaping Black Mesa, he and Alex were able to survive the 7-hour war, and at some point relocated to City 17, where they would become integral members of the Resistance. Unfortunately, Eli would ultimately die at the hands of Combine advisors in Episode 2. That is until Half-Life Alyx changed things. We'll talk about that later in the Iceberg. Alex Vance. Alex Vance is the daughter of Eli Vance, and an extremely useful member of the Resistance. As a child, she lived with Eli and her mom at the Black Mesa facility, and experienced the results of the resonance cascade. Interestingly enough, during the Black Mesa incident, the G-Man rescued Alex, despite objections from his higher-ups, possibly meaning that the G-Man saw potential in her for a later time.
When I plucked her from Black Mesa, I acted in the face of objections that she was a mere child and of no practical use to anyone. I have learned to ignore such naysayers when quelling them was out of the question. Still, I am not one to squander my investments, and I remain confident she was worth far more than the initial appraisal.
Eli was witness to this action, but never mentioned it to her. Alex grew up during the Combine rule of the Earth, surviving the 7-hour war, and like the others, relocating to City 17. She maintained a close relationship with Dr. Kleiner and Barney. In her adult years, she took an active role in the Resistance, performing reconnaissance missions, and later assisting Gordon Freeman himself in the evacuation of City 17. In Episode 2, Alex is fatally wounded by a hunter. However, with aid from the Vortigons, she's able to be recovered. Possibly in a different timeline, Alex became employed by the G-Man 5 years prior to the events of Half-Life 2, and placed in stasis, after saving a future version of her father from death at the hands of the advisors. G-Man. The G-Man is, well, no one's sure. The G-Man has appeared in every single game in the Half-Life franchise, sporadically observing the actions of the protagonist. What is known about the G-Man is almost pure speculation. What his intentions are, who his employers are, and what his purpose is, none of it is known. The only thing we know for sure about him is that he and his employers are well beyond the scope of just the Combine. The most likely explanation that I think holds weight is that he is a messenger for higher powers who employ specific people of interest to keep things interesting. Gordon is brought out of stasis the same day that Kleiner planned to do his teleportation testing which malfunctioned and made the Combine aware of Freeman's return, kicking the Resistance into gear and causing a lot of trouble in City 17. Personally, G-Man reminds me of the Q Continuum from Star Trek, a race of impossibly powerful beings who aren't necessarily malicious, but enjoy making things interesting by putting the right man in the wrong place.
Must be terribly frightening for you to be totally defenseless after all of those centuries of being omnipotent.
I'm warning you, I still have friends in high places.
Frightening one race after the other, teasing them like frightened animals, and you enjoying every moment of your victims' fears.
From now on, I'll do missionary work, okay?
Vortigaunts. Vortigaunts are an alien race in the Half-Life series, capable of projecting electrical discharges as well as telepathic and telekinetic abilities. At some point before Half-Life 1, the Vortigaunts had their homeworld invaded by the Combine, forcing them to flee to the border world of Xen, where they found no relief from persecution, as the Nihilanth soon enslaved them as well. During the events of Half-Life, under the direction of the Nihilanth, the Vortigaunts were forced to fight the inhabitants of Black Mesa, Gordon Freeman himself laying waste to their kind. However, it was the death of the Nihilanth at the hands of Freeman which freed the Vortigaunts, at least from the rule of that specific being. That made the Vortigaunts come to respect and even somewhat deify Gordon. The Vortigaunts, despite their relative difference from humans, are seen to have adapted quickly to our technology and customs. Humans are seen working side by side with Vorts, as well as them even working as chefs in Black Mesa East. However, Vortigaunts usually speak in almost Shakespearean ways, at least in English, which does set them apart socially to a degree.
We have lost all dear to us. We remember the free man. We are coterminous. There is no distance between us. No false veils of time or space may intervene. We see you still in Black Mesa. Clearly we see you in the Nihilanth's chamber. We bear witness to the bright eternity of the Nihilanth's demise. You leap, you fall, we see you flash between the barriers.
The Vortigaunts' power comes from what they call the Vortessence, a multidimensional source of power that also grants them a number of space-time abilities and a seemingly endless wisdom. The Vortessence itself will be covered later on in the Iceberg. Due to their space-time awareness, the Vortigaunts almost seem self-aware that they are in a video game, often referring to the player with lines such as, "Far distant eyes look through yours."
Far distant eyes look out through yours. Something secret steers us both. We shall not name it.
Though this could also be referring to the G-Man observing what Gordon is doing. Fun fact, it seems the antlions are native to the Vortigaunts as well, given their familiarity with the species. Xen. The border world of Xen is a place between dimensions that acts as a bridge. Discovered by Black Mesa sometime before the events of Half-Life, many bodies of Black Mesa researchers can be found scattered throughout the various planetoids. It also serves as the staging grounds for the alien life to teleport onto Earth. Xen is comprised not of a singular planet or artificial construction, but rather is a series of asteroid-like islands suspended in a void. Despite the relatively small size of land masses, there is a limited amount of gravity, as well as breathable oxygen. Speculation is that the entire Xen dimension has a breathable atmosphere, and that gravity is pulling in a constant direction across the entire space. All of the enemy combatants that are faced in Half-Life are not native to Xen. How many of them are able to survive in such desolate environments is unclear. After Gordon kills the Nihilanth, G-Man states that he and his employers have seized the border world. What this means is not totally clear. Possibly the Combine have taken over Xen, but it's doubtful that G-Man works for them, given that in Half-Life Alyx they imprison him. And again, Half-Life 1 wasn't made with Half-Life Alyx in mind. In Half-Life 2, Xen is only mentioned. Gordon does not return there, The Resistance scientists use the border world to slingshot around it, allowing them local teleportation, something the Combine cannot do, or have not figured out yet. Lastly, the skyboxes of Zen offer an interesting visual, particularly during G-Man's speech. What appears to be massive microbes are off in the distance, though these could also be the projections of other universes that Zen connects to. The Resistance. The Resistance is a human Vortigaunt effort to undermine and hopefully destroy the Combine presence on Earth. Formed sometime after the 7-Hour War, the Resistance exists as a decentralized network of outposts with only a few notable figures within it. Due to the Combine's sheer control of the population, taking action in the Resistance comes with serious risk of detection. The Resistance seen in Half-Life 2 is spread throughout City 17, Highway 17, and its coastal regions, as well as White Forest. The Vortigaunts are some of the most valuable assets of the Resistance, given their abilities and intelligence. However, within Half-Life 2, the Resistance network in City 17 seemed to have been quickly dismantled, either due to poor organization on the side of the rebels, or Combine forces being that capable of detection.
This is Station 8. We heard 12 go down and out. Surgical strike units are targeting railway stations. Repeat, civil protection is coming down on underground stations. We're already getting refugees from 9 and outlying. Looks like we're...
Station 8, do you copy? Station 8, are you there?
Another theory about this will be explored later on, and it's depressing. The Resistance often uses the Lambda symbol as a way to identify to other members of a supply cache, or other points of interest. The infamous Ravenholm was a Resistance stronghold for some time, until it was bombarded by headcrab shells, reducing the inhabitants to shambling zombies. During Freeman's return in Half-Life 2, the Resistance was bolstered and moved into serious action against the Combine, with the destruction of Nova Prospect, one of the biggest looming threats and sources of dread to the Resistance. The rebels were given a massive morale boost to take the fight directly into the streets of City 17. With Gordon and Alex's efforts, the citadel within City 17 was destroyed, giving the Resistance a much-needed major victory. The fight wouldn't be over though. In Episode 1, much of the game takes place trying to stabilize the core of the citadel, long enough for Gordon, Alex, and the remaining rebels to escape. In Episode 2, the White Forest Rebel outpost is where the climax of the game takes place, defending it from a Combine onslaught. City 17. City 17 is the capital of the Combine on Earth, an alien-occupied Eastern European city, one of the few bastions of relative safety on the planet. Outside of the city, places like the coastlines are infested by antlions and other alien life forms. Within City 17, though, life doesn't get much better. Non-civil protection are treated to a draconian police state, abusive law enforcement, miserable living conditions, and a constant reminder of humanity's surrender at the hands of Dr. Breen. The Citadel, situated in the center of the city, is a monument to the oppression of humanity, an eyesore, constantly present, constantly reminding everyone that they are being watched. Citizens often live in communal-like apartment complexes, where they are regularly subjected to police raids. They own very little, and are subservient to things like ration allowances. The overall nature of City 17 is one of oppression and desolation. Given that this is the capital city of the Combine presence on Earth, what the other cities would be like might be even worse, somehow. Interestingly enough, background noises such as car engines and airplanes can be heard early on, possibly implying a more metropolitan system beyond what we experience in the main games.
Attention, unidentified person of interest. Confirm your civil status with local protection team immediately.
Given the overview of City 17 from the Citadel at the end of Half-Life 2, it can be easily speculated that there is far more going on in the city than what we personally see. Trains, like the one Gordon Freeman arrives on, seems to be one of the main sources of transportation for civilians, at least coming in and out of the city. After the events of Half-Life 2, City 17 is left in ruins by the war between the Combine forces and the rebels. After the detonation of the Citadel core at the end of Half-Life 2 Episode 1, in Episode 2, some of the destruction can be seen. Whether or not City 17 in its entirety has been rendered uninhabitable or just heavily damaged is not entirely known. However, with the Combine's abandonment of the city, the relative safety provided by them most likely has left the city to be overrun by Zen lifeforms in time. Civil Protection. Civil Protection is the police force within City 17, and presumably the other cities around the globe. They are accented by Overwatch being the military variation. Civil Protection and Overwatch is comprised of humans that have enlisted in the Combine Army, usually to gain favorable treatment and more privileges within the Combine ranks. Famously, Civil Protection and Overwatch can be awarded with non-mechanical reproduction simulation for completed missions. While there is no direct description of what this is, one can assume that it is simulated sexual actions. That's right, VR porn exists in the Half-Life universe.
Or we can have premarital sex!
Another reward, or possibly a punishment, is family cohesion preserved, implying that so long as the soldier completes their mission, their family won't be separated. Metro cops are noted for not having any sort of augmentations, physically or mentally, though the same cannot be said for Overwatch soldiers. Usually only equipped with basic weapons, Civil Protection carries stun batons, pistols, and submachine guns, while Overwatch can be seen with pulse rifles and shotguns. Civil Protection wears a full-body uniform, leather boots, bullet-resistant vests, and a gas mask-like helmet. Their helmets are capable of image display from city scanners for quick identification of targets. Civil Protection is quick on the trigger and will abuse citizens at the slightest provocation, such as having thrown a can at one's head. After the collapse of the Citadel, Civil Protection's presence in City 17 seems to have been reduced, now replaced by Overwatch soldiers. They are completely absent in Episode 2, given that it takes place in White Forest and City 17's potential destruction. They don't really have civilians to be Civil Protection for. Ravenholm. Ravenholm is a location outside of City 17, a pre-Combine mining town, turned a resistance settlement, now an all but abandoned ghost town, filled with the headcrab-infested remnants of those who were unlucky enough to not get out in time. Ravenholm at the time of Half-Life 2 serves as one of the main survival horror elements of the game. Zombies are everywhere. It is here where we are also introduced to fast headcrabs, poison headcrabs, and fast zombies. Of course, the most notable survivor, and the only one we see, is Father Gregory, an eccentric man dedicated to his faith. He aids Gordon Freeman periodically throughout his time in Ravenholm, ultimately leading Gordon to the exit while he fends off an ever-increasing army of headcrab zombies. Gregory's fate is unknown, though given Ravenholm's proximity to City 17, the destruction of the Citadel probably had some effect on it. Judith Mossman. Judith Mothman is one of the key resistance scientists in Half-Life 2. Prior to the events of Half-Life 1, Mossman, like Gordon, was a promising student in the field of theoretical physics, and likewise applied for a position at Black Mesa. However, due to Gordon's experience at Innsbruck, he was chosen over her, to which she seems to hold some amount of resentment towards, given comments Alex reveals to Gordon in Half-Life 2.
She's one of the main reasons I spend so much time outside. You should hear her drone on about how it should have been her in the Black Mesa test chamber that day.
Oh, she said that?
Surviving the 7-hour war, relocating to City 17, and joining the Resistance, Mossman worked closely with Eli Vance on localized teleportation technology. At some point during her time with the Resistance, Mossman seemingly worked as a double agent, being an informant for the Combine, leaking intelligence to them, namely the teleportation technology they lacked. During Half-Life 2 at Nova Prospect, Mossman's apparent betrayal of the Resistance is witnessed by Alex and Gordon. While using a teleporter to escape, Mossman distracts Alex, giving her time to reroute hers and Eli's teleportation destination to the Citadel. However, at the end of Half-Life 2, Mossman turns on Breen, allowing Gordon and Alex to stop his escape. In Episode 1, a communication from Mossman is witnessed by Gordon and Alex, Mossman having traveled to the Arctic North, relaying a message about having found the Project, which will be capable of cutting off the impending superportal the Combine set into motion with the destruction of the Citadel. She is quickly cut off by the invasion of Overwatch soldiers. As it stands with the official games now, Mossman's fate is unknown. Tip of the Berg. Topics on this layer are still well known, but usually contain information not fully present in the games. 7-Hour War. The 7-Hour War was a conflict that happened only days after the Black Mesa incident and the death of the Nihilith. Portal storms raged across the world, allowing Zen lifeforms to spread throughout the planet, wreaking havoc. Humanity sought the shelter of major cities, as Zen lifeforms were infesting the outskirts and wilderness of the world. The dimensional rift attracted the attention of the Combine, prompting a full-scale invasion of Earth, which lasted only 7 hours, in which untold numbers of humans were killed. The fact that in Half-Life 2, most human survivors are located in the Combine-controlled cities, and what we see in the games is sparsely populated, it could be speculated that the death toll was in the billions. The war was ended with the total surrender of humanity, brokered by Wallace Breen at the behest of the United Nations. After this, the Combine began to colonize Earth, the various cities, augmentation facilities, and the Citadel being constructed in order to subjugate humanity. Suppression Field. The suppression field is a piece of Combine technology built into or powered by the Citadel. Seemingly a global effect, the suppression field inhibits human reproduction, causing certain protein chains during the embryonic development period to not function properly. Until the end of Half-Life 2, the humans alive on Earth at the time were presumably the last generation. According to Wallace Breen's claims, the field would be shut off once humanity had matured to a point it no longer needed the field. Presumably, this is a lie to keep the population docile and awaiting a semi-hopeful future. If the player goes into the park area of City 17, they can hear the echoes of children playing, a reminder of what humanity has lost and what it cannot regain. At least, not until Gordon plays his role. Of course, anyone who knows a decent amount about Half-Life knows that children were going to be in the game in its beta form, but that will be covered in the beta entry on this list. I believe the suppression field plays a secondary effect on the world as well. While in City 17, knowing that the field is active, there's this heavy atmosphere to everything. Knowing there is no future. You're it. Humanity doesn't continue past your generation. And there isn't a damn thing you can do about it.
Confirm your civil status with local protection team.
Nihilanth. The Nihilanth was an eldritch being of immense power, residing in the border world of Zen. Resembling a human fetus, the Nihilanth appears as a grotesque grayish blob of flesh, its head being the most defining feature. Its name taking influence from the term nihilism. The inspiration for the Nihilanth's design came from Gabe Newell during the birth of his child. The anxiety and fear Gabe had, having a child, was a driving factor behind what was intended to make the Nihilanth scary. According to series writer Mark Laidlaw, the Nihilanth encountered by Gordon Freeman is one of the last free members of its kind, the rest, like many others, being enslaved by the Combine. Prior to the events of Half-Life, Black Mesa scientists had discovered the border world of Zen, and began sending research teams to collect samples. The Nihilanth took notice of this, displeased with human actions. After the resonance cascade occurred, this being took advantage of the situation and used its power to open the rift between dimensions far more, allowing the minions of Zen to invade Black Mesa. Despite the attempts of Black Mesa scientists to close the rift, the Nihilanth was able to keep it open, prolonging the invasion. However, it's possible that the death of the Nihilanth only served to cause an even larger rift, which may have been what also garnered the attention of the Combine. Once inside Zen, the player can occasionally hear the Nihilanth speaking to them, assumed through telepathy, given that the being is not present in any area except its own chamber. Along with telepathy, the Nihilanth is capable of mind control as well, using it to subjugate the Vortigaunts. Portal creation and energy attacks are experienced by the player in the last level, the Nihilanth using portals to send Gordon Freeman to other chambers. When facing the Nihilanth directly, it also uses energy attacks alongside the minions it summons. Aided by the low-gravity chamber, the Nihilanth is also capable of levitation, though this ability seems to be diminished from untold lengths of conflict with the Combine, hence the need for a low-gravity chamber. Within the area Gordon fights the Nihilanth, there are several large Zen crystals present that negate any damage inflicted upon this being. This, in a sense, grants the Nihilanth a form of invulnerability, unless the crystals are destroyed. Interestingly, the death of the Nihilanth resembles that of the Resonance Cascade, which stated earlier might not be a coincidence. It's possible that this was a deliberate action to worsen the effects of the Resonance Cascade. Synths. Synths are synthetic lifeforms created by the Combine, either by grafting mechanical parts onto other organisms or creating completely new beings. Units like Striders, Hunters, and Gunships are some of the most direct examples of the synthetic lifeforms the Combine employ, at least on the battlefield. It's unknown what the original form of these creatures were, if they resemble anything of their original selves. But if the Stalker is anything to go off of, it's possible there is some of their core shape left over. Stalkers might be the most egregious examples of the synth process of the Combine, and will be covered in their own entry shortly. The idea of the synths was not to create a clearly augmented creature or a lifeform that just had artificial parts hanging off of it, but to blend the organic and inorganic together as a sort of forced evolution. This biomechanical nature most likely took inspiration from the xenomorphs in the Alien franchise. According to the book Raising the Bar, the Striders that we see in-game are recreations of lifeforms the Combine have come across at some point. Within the Citadel, the player can witness a synth that seemingly is not deployed in any known battlefields that Gordon participates in, known as the Crab Synth. Equipped with a Gatling gun-like weapon and able to charge its targets, it's possible this unit serves a sort of tank, given its size. Overall, the synths are one of the Combine's most disturbing aspects, violating the sanctity of one's form, just to better serve the needs of the Empire. Half-Life and Portal. If you didn't already know, Half-Life and Portal take place in the same universe. Half-Life 2 Episode 2 makes direct mention of aperture science with the discovery of the Borealis.
Incredible! What? The
Borealis? It's real?
Oh yes, quite real, despite its almost legendary stature. Our peers at Aperture Science were at work on a project of some promise, but in their rush to beat Black Mesa for funding, they must have compromised ordinary standards of risk.
And this is only further confirmed in Portal 2 when Cave Johnson directly mentions Black Mesa.
And you've most likely used one of the many products we invented, but that other people have somehow managed to steal from us. Black Mesa can eat my bankrupt...
Sir, the testing?
As well as the Easter egg of the dry dock where the Borealis presumably was, due to multiple life preservers having the name of the ship printed on them. The two companies competed with each other for government contracts. Black Mesa ultimately began winning out, evidenced by how desperate for funding Aperture Science became towards its later years. Unable to pay qualified volunteers, eventually using homeless people, and then resorting to using their own researchers for test subjects. This, of course, resulted in a high turnover rate of workers at Aperture. It then became a requirement of its own employees to participate in tests. Eventually, they resorted to building AI systems to maintain the facility in an attempt to cut costs. Aperture Science would ultimately go dark after the activation of GLaDOS, who proceeded to flood the facility with neurotoxins, leaving, as far as we know, Chell and Doug Ratman as the only survivors, though Ratman would meet his end between the events of Portal 1 and 2. However, during the cooperative campaign in Portal 2, it is revealed that there are hundreds of thousands of living test subjects in stasis. Whatever technology Aperture Science was working on with the Borealis, it's powerful enough that both the Combine and the Resistance see it as the key to winning or losing the war for Earth. Shahulathoi. The Shahulathoi are what normal people call advisors, a grub-like creature that seems to be the masterminds of the Combine, at least on Earth. Capable of telekinesis as well as telepathy, the advisors are also augmented similarly to other Combine-controlled races, though, like previously stated, the advisors seem to be high-ranking personnel. Whether or not they're the actual controllers of the Combine or just another enslaved race with a higher purpose is not totally clear. Advisors are able to insert a probe-like tongue into the back of the head of at least humans and gain information from the victim. They are able to perform this on dead bodies as well, as seen with the Barn Advisor in Episode 2. It's possible that advisors cannot breathe Earth's atmosphere, as seen by the gas mask-like apparatus attached to where one would call a mouth. It also seems that neither the citizens of City 17 nor the human members of the Resistance are aware of the advisors. Only Gordon and Alex in Episode 2 and the Vortigaunts seem to know that they exist. In a non-canon ARG on Twitter, series writer Mark Laidlaw created an account and posted as if it was from an advisor with the mind of Wallace Breen implanted in it. These posts state that the advisors are likewise an enslaved race, once a utopian society of philosophers and scientists who spent much of their time in dream states. The Combine took control of their world with ease. Some fled to outer space, others locked themselves away in dream states that would last hundreds of thousands of years. Though again, this ARG is non-canon, but I'm sure given that Mark Laidlaw was a main writer for the series, that some of this is actual lore for the advisors. Stalkers. Stalkers are one of the most grotesque examples of Combine augmentations. Given that they were previously humans, now almost completely unrecognizable from the mutilation, it strikes a deeper chord. The stalker that was once human is missing its hands, feet, and facial components. Stalkers are generally not much of threats, their only form of defense being a laser that is fired from the metallic section of their heads. However, it's the Half-Life 2 Beta Stalker that I find to be the most disturbing. With this version, the Stalker takes on an almost sadomasochistic look. Rather than the metallic parts grafted onto them, the beta version of the Stalker looks like the results of a botched surgery and scrapped together parts. Stitching going down the chest, presumably where technology was placed inside of the body. the abdomen practically gone, and only leather belts holding it all together. The mask is something more rustic and low-tech, possibly the blood from the human's eyes leaking down from the holes. The artificial appendages on its arms look far more like junk material loosely fitted together than what the official version has. Overall, the stalker from the beta looks far more disturbing, like that of a tortured being, than the ones in Half-Life 2. However, the beta stalker perfectly fits the aesthetics of the game back then. The current stalker easily fits the technocratic dystopia that Half-Life 2 became. Interestingly, in the Citadel in Episode 1, you can find these bodies hanging from the wall. No doubt humans going through the Combine augmentation and brainwashing process. However, it's the strange substance on their stomachs that makes me think this might be a part of the stalker augmentation, given that the complete form has nearly no mass in its abdomen. Citadel. The Citadel in Half-Life 2 serves as the capital building of the Combine's control on Earth, occupied by hundreds, if not thousands, of Combine soldiers and synths. Wallace Breen takes his residence at near the top of the tower, looking down over the surface of the planet that he has been given a faux sense of control over. The tower itself is surrounded by smart barriers, which keeps most unwanted people out. Beyond the walls, a gorge is present, disconnecting the Citadel from the surrounding city. It seems that the only way to get in is either flying in, or like Gordon Freeman does, a convenient opening in the lower section. Each section of the Citadel seems to operate with different intentions. Advisor pods and the power core seem to be kept at the lower levels. At central levels is where military forces and technology seem to be held. Trains carrying supplies and combat units can be seen running through the structure. Overwatch soldiers and stalkers are seen maintaining the facility. The upper levels contain loading bays for aerial units to come and go from, as well as containing Breen's office. Interestingly, within the Citadel are these strange vein-like pipes. If one looks closely, they can see what looks like blood vessels on them. Some speculate that the Citadel itself is a living organism, if these tubes are any indication of that. Nova Prospect. Nova Prospect is a location within Half-Life 2, which is first heard about at the start of the game, when Barney saves Gordon from a one-way trip to the location in question. However, Freeman deliberately goes there after the capture of Eli Vance. There, we see what was once a high-security prison is now something far more dark and brutal. The main function of Nova Prospect seems to be that of capturing humans deemed threats to the Combine, and turning them into stalkers, Overwatch soldiers, and other types of synths. While making their way through the facility, the player is able to see the remains of what one can assume to be gruesome torture, especially the dead Vortigaunt in the chair, surrounded by blood. After the events of Half-Life 2, Nova Prospect is not mentioned in Episode 1 or 2. It can be assumed that after Gordon's assault on the base, that Overwatch abandoned the facility, letting Antlines take it over. Caroline is GLaDOS. Within Portal 2, it is all but confirmed that Caroline, Cave Johnson's assistant, had her mind, or at least a simulation of it, downloaded into GLaDOS' systems. Since Cave was dying from either cancer or blood poisoning or some other form of disease caused by experimentations with moon rocks, he instructed his researchers to put Caroline in charge, despite her being completely unqualified to run such a facility. There are a few cut pieces of recordings in Portal 2 in which Caroline is heard pleading with Cave, telling him that she doesn't want this, presumably talking about having her mind dumped inside of a computer.
Sir! Mr. Johnson! Mr. Johnson, I don't want this! I don't want this! No, listen to me. Sir, I do not want this.
Now, how much of Caroline's personality is in GLaDOS is uncertain. I hazard to guess very little, given how psychotic GLaDOS is compared to what we know of Caroline. GLaDOS, at the end of Portal 2, confirms that Caroline was a part of her in some way, the fact that she deletes the program containing her.
The surge of emotion that shot through me when I saved your life taught me an even more valuable lesson, where Carolyn lives in my brain.
Carolyn, delete.
Goodbye, Carolyn. You know, deleting Carolyn just now taught me a valuable lesson. The best solution to a problem is usually the easiest one.
But who knows? Maybe Caroline was actually a psychotic, murderous person. Or perhaps GLaDOS is the result of Caroline without compassion. G-Man stalks the player. Throughout Half-Life 1, Opposing Forces, and 2, the player can get glimpses of the G-Man, who, once spotted, usually calmly walks away. This is most often believed to be the G-Man scouting out interesting individuals to employ and keeping an eye on his investments. His involvement in the actions of people like Gordon Freeman seemed to be minimal. Once inserted into a time and place, the G-Man seems to allow his employee a good amount of freedom, until certain key points are reached, such as when Gordon destroys the Citadel reactor core. G-Man and his higher-ups almost seem to be observers in the events of the Half-Life series, though giving nudges and directions they want to see things unfold in. And due to this, G-Man stalks the player, either ensuring things go the way the employers want it to, or simply to observe what the employee is doing and report it back to his higher-ups. Quarantine Zone. The Quarantine Zone is an abandoned area of City 17 introduced in Half-Life Alyx, and where the bulk of the game takes place. The only inhabitants of the zone are headcrab victims, at least one Vortigaunt, and one human survivor. The location is covered in some kind of organic material, seemingly originating from Xen. Possibly some kind of containment method is being enacted by the Combine, coating the Xen infestation with an orange substance, derived from antlions. Within the Quarantine Zone, Alyx comes across not only a brain-damaged Vortigaunt, but also a human named Larry, as well as the nigh indestructible zombie. Located above the Quarantine Zone is the Vault, the Combine ship containing the G-Man. Subsurface. In this layer, entries start to become obscured. Perhaps they were only mentioned in passing during gameplay. Some receive no acknowledgement at all. Half-Life 2 Beta. Alright, here we go. Possibly the largest entry that will be on this list. Ironically, about a version of Half-Life that never got released. This will also be one of the only entries about a real-world topic. Originally beginning development in 1999, a year after the release of the original game, Half-Life 2 might be a piece of media that saw the biggest tonal changes from its original intention to what we have now. In 2003, a year prior to launch, a leak happened at Valve. A hacker was able to gain access to deep files within Valve's network and release massive amounts of info on Half-Life 2. We'll start with the atmosphere of the beta. It originally seemed to have a much more gothic look, with a sickly green hue to everything, no doubt somewhat inspired by The Matrix, which released the same year it began development. While the official release certainly has an oppressive atmosphere, the beta looked like it was going to be even further. Rather than the Combine grafting their tech onto existing structures, they were instead using already established buildings and molding them to fit their designs. Now, the actual maps that are playable don't contain the same color tone, unless I do some post-production effects. Now, you might consider it a fascination for what we didn't get, and therefore biased, but I do feel that the tone that the beta was going for hit that oppressive feeling better than the official release does. But to justify my statement, having played Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, I can tell you for certain that those two games ooze with style, thanks to their focus on Gothic architecture. I feel that if Half-Life 2 had stuck with this style, the game would have had even more character than it already does. I think it's the beta stalker that helps give a sense of the tone that they were going for originally. Rather than the advanced alien technological dystopia we have, the beta was going for something much grittier, given that the stalkers look like it was grafted with parts from a junkyard. it seems that the beta wanted a more brutalistic, rustic feel. On top of all of this, there was going to be scenes of child labor within the city. The plot of the beta was significantly different and far longer than what we got. Characters were a far cry from what we have today. For instance, Alex wasn't related to Eli. Captain Vance was going to be a soldier who survived the 7-Hour War and later goes on to help the Resistance. Mossman would have been far more antagonistic. Gregory appeared much earlier on and was less comedic. Of course, one of the most well-known cut enemies that did technically make it into Half-Life 2 proper was the Cremator, a tall humanoid Combine janitor whose main task was to incinerate corpses and trash. This was supposed to be the in-universe explanation as to why bodies despawn from an area. In Black Mesa East, in Eli's lab, a cremator's head can be found in a jar, apparently discovered by Alex on one of her many scouting runs. This could indicate that cremators are in fact in City 17, just not encountered by the player. The beta would have spanned from City 17 to an underwater base, a Combine air pollution facility, a massive train depot focusing on platforming, a weather control system, and even into the Borealis. Needless to say, the campaign for the beta was going to be massive, and some of the ideas were recycled into later episodes. It seems in the original plan for Half-Life 2 that the player would spend more time in City 17, exploring it, learning just how dystopian things are. As such, it's possible that Half-Life 2 would have had a more open-world design to it. Abyssal 3. Abyssal 3 is a leaked text document posted by Mark Laidlaw to his personal site, which is a rough outline of what Episode 3 would have been. It is presented in a format as if Gordon Freeman wrote this letter to an unknown person. It describes Gordon's first-hand experience after the end of Episode 2, his mission on the Borealis, the trouble that ensued, and possibly the true scale of the Combine. Notably, in Abyssal 3, Alex Vance is taken by the G-Man, while Gordon is left on the Borealis as it continues on its collision course into the Combine superstructure. Of course, in Half-Life Alyx, it ends with the G-Man taking Alex as his newest employee, mirroring what happens in Abyssal 3. At this point, as you will no doubt be unsurprised to hear, a certain sinister figure appeared, in the form of that sneering trickster, G-Man. For once, he appeared not to me, but to Alex Vance. Alex had not seen the cryptical schoolmaster since childhood, but she recognized him instantly. Come along with me now. We've places to be and things to do, said the G-Man, and Alex acquiesced. She followed the strange gray man out of the Borealis, out of our reality. For me, there was no convenient door held open. Only a snicker and a sideways glance. I was left alone, riding the weaponized research vessel into the heart of the Combine world. Gordon realizes that the scale of the Combine is overwhelming to what humanity is capable of defeating, and that the use of the Borealis as a weapon will do little damage to them. An immense light blazed. I caught a cosmic view of a brilliantly glittering Dyson sphere. Vastness of the Combine's power, the futility of our struggle, blossomed briefly in my awareness. I saw everything. Mainly, I saw how the Borealis, our most powerful weapon, would register as less than a fizzling match head as it blew itself apart. And what remained of me would be even less than that. However, the Vortigaunts are able to get Freeman back to Earth, where he wakes up on an unknown shore at some point in the future. And here we are. I spoke of my return to this shore. It has been a circuitous path to lands I once knew. It's surprising to see how much the terrain has changed. Enough time has passed that few remember me, or what I was saying when I last spoke, or what precisely we hope to accomplish. At this point, the resistance will have failed or succeeded, no thanks to me. Old friends have been silenced or fallen by the wayside. I no longer know or recognize most of the research team, though I believe the spirit of the rebellion still persists. I expect you know better than I the appropriate course of action, and I leave it to you. Expect no further correspondence from me regarding these matters. This is my final episode. Personally, I'm a fan of this direction. It's gritty, realistic, and not the humanity always wins plot that games tend to follow. Half-Life 2 already broke tropes by having an alien empire take over Earth, despite Gordon's successes in the first game. So for humanity to become just another world subjected to Combine rule, and continue on as such, would have been an interesting line. Borealis. The Borealis was a U.S. Coast Guard icebreaker, acquired by Aperture Science sometime prior to the Black Mesa incident. Whatever Aperture Science was using the vessel for, it's assumed that it has something to do with large-scale teleportation technology. Due to trying to beat Black Mesa for a government contract, Aperture Science neglected usual safety standards. This led to the boat, everyone on board, and portions of the dry dock to be teleported somewhere in the Arctic. On a real-world note, the Borealis incident actually has some real-world inspiration. The Philadelphia experiment, a term originating from 1955, coined by Carl Allen. He claimed to have witnessed an experiment done on a naval ship, rendering it invisible, but also teleporting it from their ship dock in Philadelphia to Virginia, then back. The crew that was aboard this ship was said to have experienced mental, physical, and even chronological effects. Madness, intangibility. Supposedly some of the crew were found merged with the ship, as well as some of the men seemingly frozen in time. Knowing that, the experiment on the Borealis, it's easy to see the correlation between that and this alleged real-world event. G-Man orchestrated the events of Half-Life 1. This is pretty much confirmed, given that in Episode 2, Eli reflects on the events of the day the Black Mesa incident happened, noting that he should have never have sent Gordon in with the Zen crystal, a sample provided by their mutual friend.
Unforeseen consequences. The last time I heard those words was back at Black Mesa. You had just stepped into the test chamber when he whispered them in my ear. You know who I'm talking about. Our mutual friend. When he brought in that crystal, I knew I should have aborted that damn test, but...
This essentially confirms that G-Man planned for the Resonance Cascade to take place. What this means is unclear for his motivations. Is he an agent of the Combine, sent to prepare worlds for their invasion? Or does he work for a different group that likes to test and prod different races and people? Of course, only Valve knows, though even they probably don't have a concrete idea and leave it up to guesswork on purpose. After all, we're still talking about it, aren't we? So they did their job right. Wallace Breen became an advisor. Breen's fate after Half-Life 2 is presumably that he died when Gordon destroyed the Citadel core. However, some speculate that sometime before this takes place, Breen had his mind downloaded into an advisor body. His call to an unknown advisor towards the end of Half-Life 2, his dialogue suggests that he's reluctantly accepting the transfer of his mind to one of their bodies.
Path to the core.
I could still deliver Earth, but not without your help. The portal destination is untenable. Surely you can set the relay elsewhere. There's no way I can survive in that environment.
Thank God, it's just an old recording.
The host body, you must be joking. I can't possibly... Oh, all right, damn it, if that's what it takes.
Abyssal 3 and the non-canon Breen Grub Twitter account, both made by Mark Laidlaw, suggests that Breen was, in fact, able to transfer possibly a copy of his mind into an advisor body. Though why Breen was given this privilege, since his role on Earth was more of a ceremonial thing, given that he was beholden to the powers that be. This possibly suggests that Breen did hold a higher position than we're led to believe, or blank advisor bodies are numerous, and they view them as disposable. GLaDOS knows about the Combine. This is actually one of my favorite concepts in this Iceberg. There's some dialogue GLaDOS has in Portal 1.
Things have changed since the last time you left the building. What's going on out there will make you wish you were back in here. I have an infinite capacity for knowledge, and even I'm not sure what's going on outside. All I know is I'm the only thing standing between us and them.
This suggests that during the events of Portal, that either the portal storms are happening across Earth or the 7-hour war is taking place. And despite GLaDOS being a super intelligent AI, even she cannot fully grasp what's happening outside. It's one of my favorite storytelling concepts. Implications. Think about it. Some military contractor out in New Mexico, otherwise completely obscured from the world, just caused an event that will all but end the world. You don't know what these portal storms are or why they are raging throughout the world. You don't know what or why there are these alien beings invading, but it's happening. Even a hyper-intelligent AI like GLaDOS is completely dumbfounded by these events. It's possible that during our time playing Portal 1's campaign, that the world is being ravaged by the Combine or the portal storms, and that we're only safe because Aperture Science is so deep underground that the Combine haven't taken notice of it, nor do the effects of the portal storms reach that far down. It's a sort of grim idea too. Chell is safer down there, with a robot constantly trying to kill her, but in fair and beatable ways, than to be on the surface and most likely be killed by Combine soldiers or Zen life. Both tubes. This is a bit of a joke, but I felt it would be funny to cover. So, in Half-Life 1 and 2, the shotgun Gordon acquires is directly based on the Spaz-12, a real-world shotgun. You know it, the one in Jurassic Park. However, there's one thing about the shotgun in Half-Life that makes zero sense. The right-click fire of the weapon apparently fires shells out of both tubes. Now, if you know anything about firearms, you already know the issue here. For those of you who aren't as versed, let me tell you why this is completely nonsensical. This is a Spaz-12. This is the barrel where the shell is fired out from. This is the tube in which extra shells are stored. This tube cannot fire shells out of it as it is closed off, and namely, because there is no firing mechanisms in this section of the rifle. So, essentially, every time you fire from both tubes, the Spaz-12 is blowing out the end of the magazine well, which would render the ability to load more shells or pump the action useless. And how shells are even being fired from this barrel when there is no firing pin to strike the primer of the shell in the tube is beyond me. That's not even to mention the fact that if it's a full mag, you'd be firing the shell from this position, which should force the shell and all the inner parts of the magazine in front of it out the tube as well. Gameplay accuracy is a hell of a drug. Mystery Woman. In Half-Life Alyx, the player skirts around a room in the quarantine zone, in which a human woman is heard talking to at first an unknown party, then to an advisor. She mentions the Black Mesa incident, which implies that she was possibly present at the facility when it occurred.
What in the history of today makes you think you're going to stop her? Look, this guy we've got in there survived Black Mesa. He raised holy hell and then just disappeared. We finally caught him and you're just going to let him go again? Move the box!
While she definitely works for the Combine, she speaks to them in a far more casual manner than how Breen does. This, of course, raises questions as to why she feels emboldened to talk down to the higher-ups, and why they humor this behavior. Behind the scenes, this woman was created for the sole purpose to throw the player off from figuring out who is really in the vault.
Look, this guy we've got in there survived Black Mesa. He raised holy hell and then just disappeared.
These lines can technically apply to both Gordon Freeman and the G-Man, given that G-Man provided the materials to allow the resonance cascade to occur, and if opposing force is to be considered canon, he reactivated the nuke the Black Ops team set. I speculate that this mysterious scientist most likely helped create the vault holding the G-Man. How concerned she is about getting it moved before Alex can get there, I think alludes to the idea that she's personally involved with this technology. G-Man's employers. So, this entry is 100% pure speculation, and there is no concrete answers. First-time players will assume that G-Man is employed by the Combine, since he seems to be fine with everything going on at Black Mesa, and at the end of the game, the fact that he mentions that his employers have seized the border world.
The border world, then, is in our control for the time being, thanks to you. Quite a nasty piece of work you managed over there. I am impressed.
However, the fact that in Half-Life 2, Gordon is allowed to not only go on a Combine killing spree, but he's also allowed to destroy the Citadel core. If the G-Man was employed by the Combine, it certainly would be strange for them to allow Gordon to wreak havoc like he does. So then, who does the G-Man really work for? This is where rampant speculation begins. Theory 1. G-Man's employers are cosmic beings that are bored and like to experiment and toy with races across different times and dimensions, and the G-Man, either a separate entity or a projection of these beings, directly interacts with people of interest. Theory 2. It turns out that despite me literally coming up with this theory as I was writing this script, some other people have thought of this too. G-Man's employers are potentially future humans who are placing important humans at opportune times and places in order to keep humanity alive to get them to the point of being interdimensional and able to manipulate time. Theory 3. G-Man's employers are Valve. Yeah, I know, that's meta. Think about it this way. Valve wanted to make the first Half-Life game, so they came up with the Resonance Cascade in order for something interesting to happen. Valve wants to make Half-Life 2, so they reactivate Gordon in order to make the plot of the game happen. G-Man is Valve's proxy to employ Gordon, who's a proxy for the player, so that something interesting can happen. Again, I know, it's super duper meta. Theory number 4. G-Man's employers are an unknown race that is at war with the Combine, hence why they even allow Gordon to go on his rampages. It's possible that they're threatened by the Combine and its technology, fearing that they will achieve the level of power that the employers have. But why they can't just take out the Combine themselves is where this theory gets a little iffy. Perhaps they are unable to directly interact with the physical world. Theory 5. G-Man is actually his own employer. It's possible that G-Man is in fact the one orchestrating these things himself, and just says he has employers to throw us off the fact that he is the cosmic entity keeping an eye on things. Bottom of the Berg. Topics here are known to those who went out of their way to research them. A casual fan may be in for some new information. Combine Overworld. Not much is known about the Combine Overworld, whether it's an actual planet or something more similar to Zen. It's also unconfirmed if the Overworld is the actual origins of the Combine, whatever they may truly be, or if it is just another area captured and enslaved by them. Possibly, the only people to lay eyes on the Overworld are Alex and Gordon during their final attack against the Citadel core. Large spirals, somewhat similar to the Citadel itself, are seen with a mostly gaseous orange sky backing them. Gunships emerge from the portal leading to the Overworld, no doubt implying that the realm indeed holds its own synth army. Breen tells his superiors that he cannot survive in the environment beyond the portal.
Surely you can set the relay elsewhere. There's no way I can survive in that environment.
Thank God, it's just an older...
This essentially confirms that the Overworld has at least an atmosphere unbreathable by humans. The advisors Breen is communicating with suggest a new host body. This may imply that the advisors come from this place and cannot breathe Earth's atmosphere, and Overwatch soldiers need their airtight suits so that they can travel to the Overworld without issue. The term off-world assignment can be heard on the Overwatch comms, suggesting that if they fail their mission, they will be relocated to the Combine Overworld, never to return. Combine allows the resistance. This is the theory I was talking about in the Resistance entry back on Layer 1, and I personally believe it to be true. The Combine is a multi-dimensional technological tyrannical alien empire. The Resistance is, as far as we know, only on Earth, only in City 17. To say that the Resistance is horribly outmatched is an understatement. In Half-Life 2, how quickly the Combine discover multiple Resistance outposts within the city and are able to figure out the location of Black Mesa East could suggest that the Combine knows where all the Resistance strongholds are, and allowed them to exist. Then again, given the hazard suit is filled with trackers, as noted in Half-Life 1,
that suit of yours is full of tracking devices.
What?
Still, it's better than going naked in this place.
Unless Kleiner removed them. It would explain how the Combine are right on the heels of Freeman at almost every step. However, why would the Combine allow the Resistance to exist? Well, to answer that, let's explore a similar situation from a different series. In Star Trek, it's theorized by the community that the Borg allow the Federation to survive, given that Starfleet keeps finding new ways to defeat the Borg. Since the Collective is all about gathering more and more information, keeping an enemy alive that finds new ways of defeating you, at least in small-scale battle, is a valuable opponent. Since you can reliably assimilate whatever new technology they've created, and it usually only costs you a ship or two, this is a small price to pay to ever expand your defensive capabilities. While the Combine don't have much to learn from human technology, there could be another reason to allow the Resistance to exist. You see, if you just stomp out an uprising, the population that is still around no longer has any kind of hope that they will be freed. The population would shut down, possibly mass suicides, and they would cease to be useful. So in this theory, the Combine allows the Resistance to feel like it has a chance against the Empire. It gives the regular citizens of City 17 a false hope that one day they'll be freed, which keeps them in line, believing that the Resistance will save them. They just have to wait. You remember how I said this one would be depressing? I meant it. The Combine could most likely stomp out the Resistance in a week, if not sooner. They have far more numbers and far greater technology, but to keep the citizens of the city docile and in line, they let the humans play pretend revolutionaries to give everyone else a sense of hope. It's only when a scientist with a crowbar who previously killed what amounts to an eldritch god comes back that they go into full panic mode and begin stomping out the Resistance. Resource consumption. In both the beta and the official release, it's shown that the Combine are consuming the resources of Earth at a noticeable rate. In the beta, this was being done largely to terraform the atmosphere. In the official game, these resources are most likely being used to create or fuel the creation of synths and Combine technology. 20 years' worth of Combine occupation has rendered the water levels of at least the Eastern European nation the game takes place in by several dozen feet. Boats that were once afloat now lay abandoned on the shoreline. Whatever they're using the water for, it isn't being put back into the water cycle. Perhaps it's being shipped off-world to fuel other Combine colonies, or that it's converted into something else, unable to be returned into the water tables. One could argue that humanity itself is a resource being drained from the world. Given that stalkers are heavily augmented humans, they won't be joining the normal human population again, nor reproducing. Granted, no one else was either until Episode 1. However, it seems that places like White Forest have remained mostly untouched by the Combine's hand. While wood is not exactly the most useful material to an interdimensional empire, you'd think that places like the mines within the forest would be currently mined for metals. Of course, water contains two highly useful elements within it: hydrogen, which is combustible, and oxygen, which, the most useful thing to living creatures is the fact that you can breathe it. I'm sure that the Combine know a lot more ways to use hydrogen and oxygen, most likely in fusion, which would explain why it's being consumed so heavily, given the power requirements Combine technology most likely needs. Gordon is G-Man. So this one had some serious supporters back when Half-Life 3 confirmed memes were still funny. Here's the justification. G-Man's moniker starts with the letter G, Gordon's first name also starts with the letter G. You probably see where this is going. G-Man's name ends with man. Gordon's last name, Freeman, also ends with man. Gordon is G-Man confirmed. However, this theory falls apart when you take into consideration that the term G-Man has been around for decades, even before Half-Life 1. G-Man is a shortened way of saying government man, usually describing FBI or CIA agents. This term dates back in the US as early as 1930, and used as the title for the film aptly named G-Men in 1935. So, is Gordon Freeman actually the G-Man? Maybe a future version from an alternate timeline, but until that's never confirmed, G-Man is just another usage of the term G-Man. Aperture gels. Introduced in Portal 2, Aperture Laboratories at some point in the mid-1900s created several gels used in their many testing chambers. Described as a sweet, slightly less non-toxic form of fiberglass insulation, these gels originally were created as a diet aid, marketed as a dietetic pudding substitute. The repulsion gel, a blue liquid-like substance that was originally used to coat the consumer's stomach, which made food bounce back up out of their mouths, was later discontinued from civilian markets and began use as a testing substance. The gel allows the tester to bounce on whatever surface it is coated in. Interestingly, there is no loss of energy while bouncing, at least in gameplay. You will continuously bounce up to the same height that you jumped onto the gel from. Propulsion gel, which is distinguished by its orange color, originally was used to coat the consumer's digestive tract, causing food to quickly pass through the body without being absorbed. This, of course, was met with serious issues and was soon taken off the shelves and repurposed into more testing material. The gel allows the tester to achieve much faster on-foot speeds than normally possible, wherever the gel is present, at least. Conversion gel, noted by its white appearance, was created by grinding up moon rocks and making it into a liquid. This explains why the white painted surfaces in the condemned area are able to support portals, as this paint is most likely conversion gel. And furthermore, all test chambers that have walls supporting portal projections are in fact made from conversion gel. Cave Johnson fell terminally ill from the process of creating the gel, stating that the ground-up moon rocks are pure poison.
And guess what? Ground-up moon rocks are pure poison. I am deathly ill.
Of course, this gel allows the tester to create portals from the portal gun onto it, even if the surface it's coating normally doesn't allow for portals to be placed. While in-game, the gels are harmless outside of mishaps by the player, in lore, at least two of them are much different. The repulsion gel is stated by Cave Johnson to be an unknown element, and a lively one.
Oh, in case you got covered in that repulsion gel, here's some advice the lab boys gave me. Do not get covered in the repulsion gel. We haven't entirely nailed down what element it is yet, but I'll tell you this, it's a lively one, and it does not like the human skeleton.
What this means is unclear, but my guess is that this element attacks calcium, which means that it probably deteriorates bones. The propulsion gel is not noted to have any ill effects on the human body. At least it isn't mentioned in any of the pre-recorded messages. The conversion gel is pretty much responsible for Cave's death, and I think I can theorize how. During the Apollo missions that went to the moon, astronauts noted that their suits were being damaged by an unknown abrasive material. As it turns out, the dust on the moon is not like Earth's dust. Moon dust is far more sharp in nature, like micro razors. So, at least in Portal, the fact that they ground up moon rocks means that they were creating this razor dust. My theory is that Cave Johnson most likely got a form of black lung from the moon rocks. Classically, coal miners back in the 1800s and even into the mid-1900s were known to get what was called black lung, where breathing in the dust from the coal mines led to disastrous health effects on their lungs. Given Cave's coughing fits in the recordings, I think it's safe to say he most likely got some form of fibrosis caused by the inhalation of the moon dust. That or lung cancer. G-Man is a nihilith. This one could actually hold more ground to it, at least more than G-Man being Gordon. The Nihilith is an impossibly powerful cosmic being, capable of extreme powers, casual portal generation, telekinesis, telepathy, and a lot more. What we've seen it do, imagine what it can do that we haven't seen. So far, the only ability the Nihilith from Half-Life 1 didn't seem to possess that the G-Man has is time manipulation. Now, you might be thinking that this looks nothing like this. Well, if the Nihilith is capable of telepathy, which it is, could a Nihilith warp a target's perception of reality so that it appears to them as a human? I believe they could. Or, easily enough, probably project themselves as a human in the minds of their targets. The Nihilith, previously stated, comes from a race that was also subjugated by the Combine, so no doubt it's hostile towards the Empire, which would explain why G-Man and his employers allow Gordon to devastate the Combine's hold on City-17. However, I don't believe this is the case, and not enough evidence lines up with the theory to hold any water besides simple speculation. Portal 2 timeframe. So this is an interesting one. The first portal possibly takes place just after the Black Mesa incident, given GLaDOS' dialogue. However, Portal 2 potentially takes place not right after Portal 1, not even 20 years after to line up with Half-Life 2. No, it's possible that Portal 2 takes place thousands of years after the first one. The intro sequences have several points in time. The first wake-up cycle happens 50 days after Chell is put into stasis after the events of the first game. I think the haunting part of this intro sequence is knowing that the Combine invasion of Earth has already happened. While humanity is being subjugated above, you're sleeping your days away down in a salt mine. The second wake cycle happens somewhere between 50 and 50,000 years after. While there is no direct quote of how long Chell has been in extended relaxation, one clue that can be taken is from the overhead announcer.
You have been in suspension for 9999999.
Now, whether this is a glitch in the announcer due to the advanced decay of the facility and it actually hasn't been up to 50,000 years, or it has been an incredibly long time and the system can't properly calculate it, is up to debate. Also, the 50,000 year estimate is coming from the wiki, so take that as you will. For the sake of the Iceberg, we're going to assume that it has been a ridiculous amount of time. The fact that Aperture Science is still functional is a testament to actually how well they designed their technology. The overgrowth of the facility does indicate that time has passed, and how deep down the vegetation is growing, given that Aperture Science is built inside of a massive salt mine, could indicate how much time has in fact passed. There's an interesting small line made by GLaDOS during the first section of the game.
Enjoy this next test. I'm going to go to the surface. It's a beautiful day out. Yesterday I saw a deer.
Knowing that Portal takes place in the Half-Life universe, it's known that the fauna of Earth has been drastically reduced from Zen life invading. If GLaDOS is indeed telling the truth and saw a deer just within the time of her reactivation and testing Chell, it could be that natural life on Earth is beginning to recover. Or GLaDOS saw one of the rare deer still left on Earth and nature is still devastated. Of course, at the end of Portal 2, Chell is brought up to the surface and exits into a wheat field. Seemingly no one is around, and there's not even a trace of humanity or the Combine for that matter. Though, given that White Forest doesn't have much either, it's possible the Combine never bothered colonizing that area. Of course, Earth could be a very different place 50,000 years in the future. Continental drift, the effects of the Combine resource consumption. It's hard to say what kind of world Chell is left in at the end of Portal 2. And hopefully the Resistance was successful in driving away the Combine forces, and possibly even get rid of Zen life, which might allow Chell to survive on the surface. Twilight Zone. Here we begin to get fragments of data, ideas half-formed, speculation that may deepen the impact of the universe as a whole. Chell clones. Every time Chell dies in Portal 2, during gameplay, a clone of her is deposited and tasked with continuing. I assume that's what this theory is about. Of course, this can be made as an argument for pretty much every game that exists. Whenever you die in Halo, a flash clone of Chief is sent in. Whenever you die in Fallout, a clone is activated to take your place. Or maybe in that case, a synth. Other than these basic speculations, there is no true evidence that Chell is a clone, and even the devs have denied this, so that kind of kills this theory. GLaDOS is a hanging woman. So this is an interesting one. Many fans claim that GLaDOS is supposed to resemble a woman who has been hung from her feet, upside down. Now, obviously the actual GLaDOS looks nothing like a human, but at least in this image, one can start to see what's being talked about here. There is some symbolism at play here that could justify this theory. It's possible that the hanging woman idea suggests that GLaDOS is being punished for gaining too much power. A woman who gained too much power, too much independence, is being restrained and tortured. In Portal 2, Cave Johnson essentially forces Caroline to have her mind merged with a computer. This also plays into the symbolism of a woman forced into confinement and punished for refusing the male powers. Of course, the devs never intended this, and this is purely fan theory to make a game with some darker undertones even more dark, which I can't fault them for that. This is a part of the Half-Life universe after all. Chell is dead at the end of Portal 2. While I don't consider this one canon, I do actually really like this theory due to all the symbolism in it. Chell is sucked out into the vacuum of the moon's surface. While death from space is not instantaneous, it certainly is fast. That, and she was directly exposed to the sun, which on the moon reaches like 200 degrees Fahrenheit. It's very possible that Chell is actually dead, and what we see in the end is metaphors. 1. The elevator up to the surface. You could view Aperture Laboratories as hell, and she is being carried up to heaven. 2. The turret opera could be a nod to Norse mythology, with the Valkyries singing as Chell ascends into Valhalla, or they could be a chorus of angels announcing the arrival of Chell's soul to heaven. 3. The wheat field she steps out into could be like the ending of Gladiator, the Fields of Elysium. 4. The fact that there is no signs of human life on the surface, this could be a personal afterlife, and maybe Chell is just super misanthropic. Now, a different way to look at this, instead of Chell physically dying, on a more symbolic level, one could consider the version of Chell that went through the trials and tribulations of the laboratories is dead, and the Chell that comes up to the surface is a different person, freed from the prison she was trapped in. Don't drink the water. This is a line said by one of the citizens in the train station at the very start of the game. He makes this statement.
Don't drink the water. They put something in it to make you forget. I don't even remember how I got here.
What this truly means is anyone's guess. Knowing exactly what's in the water to cause memory loss is unknown, but it's possible that he is indeed telling the truth. But why would the Combine be spiking the water like this? Simple. A population that is confused and can't remember is just another way to control them. They can't remember life before the Combine, and will think that this state of existence is normal. Though given that he claims he can't even remember how he got to the train station, could mean that whatever is in the water is also affecting short-term memory as well. Once again, leaving your population in a daze of confusion, only living in the present, makes them more open to control. You know, there is a lot of Dr. Breen's private reserve throughout the city. Vortessence. While directly mentioned in the games, what the Vortessence is something far more than just electricity firing out from the hands of the Vortigons. Vortessence has been used to power human technology and even heal fatal wounds, and, even more extreme than that, with enough power, the vortessence can even be used to counteract the hold that the G-Man has on Gordon. At the beginning of Episode 1, the Vortigaunts are able to break Gordon from the control of the G-Man, allowing him to continue life outside of G-Man's stasis. The vortessence also gives the Vortigaunts a wisdom beyond normal measures. The Vortigaunt inside the drainage tunnel gives Gordon vague statements about himself and the future, often referencing an unseen force acting through him, most likely talking about the player.
Far distant eyes look out through your... Something secret steers us both. We shall not name it.
Is it possible that the Vortigaunts know they're in a video game? Probably not. But the vortessence seems to be a power source on par with what the G-Man uses. In fact, the Vortigaunts and the race the Nihilanth comes from originate from the same world, or more accurately, the same dimension. So it's possible that the Nihilanth was using the vortessence during the events of Half-Life 1. Abyssal Plains. On this layer, we will find no comfort in the familiar. Here, you will learn of things you might not have wanted to. Alternate timelines. Up until Half-Life Alyx, the idea of alternate timelines weren't really considered in the canon. The Half-Life universe is fairly linear when it comes to events and how and when they take place. However, Alyx has changed that. At the end of Half-Life Alyx, after freeing G-Man from Combine imprisonment, he shows Alyx the events of Episode 2 and the death of her father. He allows her to change the event in exchange for her employment. When the player jumps forward to Episode 2, we see that Alyx is gone, showing us that the G-Man has taken her from our reality. The one problem, of course, is, if Alyx was taken 5 years prior to the events of Half-Life 2, that raises the question of how actions like storming the Citadel even occurred without the aid of Alyx. This is where multiple timelines has to be considered. At the very least, Episode 2 from the original game takes place in a different timeline from the Episode 2 where Eli Vance is saved. This means that if we get another installment of the Half-Life series, where we are hunting down the G-Man and trying to find Alyx, that takes place in a timeline following the ending of Half-Life Alyx, rather than the timeline set up at the end of the original Episode 2. This is why I hate time travel. There are possibly other implied mentions of alternate timelines in the series as well. G-Man, at the end of Half-Life 2, possibly makes mentions of alternate timelines.
Rather than offer you the illusion of free choice, I will take the liberty of choosing for you, if and when your time comes round again.
G-Man speaks of the illusion of choice, which might imply that he and his employers have run simulations of Freeman's actions across the events of Half-Life 1, 2, and other scenarios we're unaware of. They could have been viewing alternate timelines where Freeman succeeded or failed, and choose to take the Freeman from the successful timelines and use him for further events. Source Engine Feel. Liminality. If you've spent a good amount of time in Source games, specifically those of Portal, Half-Life 2, Gmod, and Portal 2, there's a certain feel to them that I have not encountered in any other game. There's almost this sense of loneliness at nearly every spot in the various games that gives it this almost surreal feel. The spacious audio design. You can hear activity going on somewhere, but it isn't where you are, and you can never seem to locate it, always moving, always just around the next corner. If you aren't hearing the sounds of a population you can't see, you are left alone with the sounds of your own footsteps, echoing through empty corridors that were once built by human industry, but now stand as empty and as silent as long-abandoned houses, once occupied by the hustle and bustle of life, but now lays empty, devoid of humanity. the underpopulated sense of City 17, or Gmod's most famous map. Both areas should be more populated, but they aren't. There's no one around, or fewer people than you'd expect. What happened to everyone? Well, we know what happened to everyone in Half-Life 2. Familiar settings, offices, apartments, street corners, all places you know well, but stripped of the human touch, and seem to be built just enough to be recognizable, like some alien intelligence is trying to simulate your reality, but doesn't understand the soul of human spaces. Source games feel like walking through spaces built by human hands. Sometimes you hear echoes, like life is still nearby. But it's only a ghost, a haunting memory of a world that once was. Gordon has no free will. Due to the G-Man's employment, it could be considered that Gordon, ironic to his last name, doesn't have free will. Given that he is taken out of reality at the whim of the G-Man and placed back in when they want him to be, this implies that Gordon only has a freedom to act within certain limitations, and should he go outside of that, or complete what the G-Man wants from him, that he is placed back into stasis. This is only further backed up by the fact that the Vortigaunts had to untether Gordon from the G-Man in order to let him continue his life in Episode 1 and 2. Now, this entry might also be referring to the fact that the player controls Gordon's every movement, which, yeah, no duh, he doesn't have free will unless you consider his will to be whatever the player decides to do. Zombies are conscious. So it's very possible that the headcrab zombies are still conscious, despite their current state. This is supported by the dialogue, if you want to call it that. The headcrab zombie scream is reverse speech. This could easily imply that headcrab victims are, in fact, still conscious. They are aware that they are being controlled by an alien parasite attached to their head, and are begging for help. This would fall right in line with the dark and gritty nature of Half-Life. A person who cannot control their actions due to an alien parasite driving its beak into your skull, overriding your mind, forcing you to move, transforming your body, making you kill innocent people. Yeah, that's Half-Life. However, I offer an alternate explanation. These reverse cries of help are not actually the human inside the crab, aware of their situation, but echoes of the human that was there. Possibly the headcrab, while accessing the brain of its victim, is causing the body to vocalize, despite the fact that the human being controlled is actually dead. At least, I hope this is the case. Besides, even if the human underneath was in fact still alive and conscious, after removing the headcrab, they most likely wouldn't live much longer, given the state of their bodies. If they are indeed still alive, Gordon is doing them a favor by putting them out of their misery. Checkpoints are time travel. This is an incredibly meta topic. Due to the G-Man's control of time and space, is it possible that when you die in Half-Life 1 and 2 and respawn, that's actually G-Man placing Gordon in a previous point in time, before his death, allowing him to retain his memories and correct the mistakes that led to his initial demise? Probably not, but it's fun to think about. Of course, how does this work in Episode 1 and 2 after Gordon has been severed from G-Man's hold? It might be the Vortigaunts doing it, but if they're capable of that level of time travel, how did they get conquered by the Combine in the first place? This theory would imply that any video game that has elements of time travel, that is the in-universe explanation for the player character to restart at a point before their death. North America gone. In Half-Life Alyx, a globe can be seen during the introduction, which a big red X is scribbled across the entire North American landmass, implying that it probably is no longer inhabitable. either due to the portal storms completely ravaging the land or Zen life decimating the ecosystem. Or perhaps Combine resource consumption has led to the total biosphere collapse of the US and Canada. Whatever the case is, it seems that these countries can no longer be lived in. Curiously enough, though, when Chell is sucked out onto the surface of the moon, the Earth is visible. The oceans and North America seem to be fine, despite the Combine occupation. Of course, it's more likely that this is just reuse of assets and not an actual accurate representation of Earth after the Combine. However, the fact that the globe in Half-Life Alyx shows North America crossed off and Aperture Laboratories is located in Michigan, if things are still in a bad state by the ending of Portal 2, Chell could be going into a barren wasteland. Though that's contradicted by the fact that there's a wheat field. Who knows, maybe the Combine were driven off sometime prior, and Earth has had time to recover. Maybe the Half-Life universe isn't as depressing as Abyssal 3 makes it out to be. Depths unknown. Theories and speculation run rampant at these levels. You may gain a whole new perspective past this point. Aperture Science is haunted. This, of course, is more of a joke entry, but does have some in-universe evidence, as well as symbolic truth. To start, Wheatley claims that the caretaker of the manufacturing lines went mad, killing the robotic staff that he worked with. Their perfect replica is still screaming from an incident they have no memories of. Of course, there's nothing paranormal about that. However, I think Aperture is haunted in a different way. The voice of Cave Johnson still echoes throughout the bowels of Aperture. Test courses, sitting in the dark, brine-filled chambers deep underground. The voice of their founder encouraging the progress of science through test subjects that died long ago.
There's 1,000 tests performed every day here in our enrichment spheres. I can't personally oversee every one of them, so these pre-recorded messages will cover any questions you might have and respond to any incidents that may occur in the course.
The ideas that this place once stood for, the breakthroughs it was once known for, all of it lies in ruin. On top of this, the scrawlings of the schizophrenic Ratman, remnants of a man who once worked for this place, then fought against it. Non-mechanical reproduction simulation. I mentioned this beforehand, but the details of this subject are pretty dystopian when you really think about it. So what does that phrase even mean? Non-mechanical. So it's digital, or in the case of the mind, conceptual. It doesn't have a truly physical presence. Reproduction simulation. Simulating the act of reproduction. Altogether, this means that the Combine soldiers, as a reward, are given mental simulations of sex. Think VR porn, but streamed directly into your brain. Everything feels real, but you wake up without the shame. Given that the Combine are able to augment and brainwash people to the extent that the Stalker is, the ability to simulate sexual activities in one's mind is probably bar none. Think about how detrimental this is for society. You can go become a Combine soldier, and in return, you get to experience, to you, full-on sexual encounters. You don't have to spend time building a relationship with anyone. You don't have to worry about social skills. All you have to do is go shoot some people and you get to pretend to have sex. The perfect way to control a population. Make intense pleasure easy to come by. Then take it away and give the users a way to achieve it again. You know, for some reason, I feel like this could somehow in some way relate to our real world. I don't know, something about a talking tick and easily accessible adult content? I don't know. Video games, am I right? Every copy of Half-Life 1 and 2 is personalized. Yeah, I know, this is a meme. At this point, every single game ever made is personalized to each player. Of course, the meme is trying to state that the Half-Life games you played are a completely different experience than the Half-Life games I played. Here's the thing. There is some truth to this. Not in a literal sense. The Half-Life I played, Gordon shoved a Zen crystal into the mass spectrometer and caused a resonance cascade. No one played a Half-Life copy where this didn't happen. I swear if I see comments gaslighting me on this one. Games are, in a symbolic sense, personalized. Not by what happens in the games themselves, but by context. Each playthrough takes on a personal meaning through dozens, even hundreds of factors. How old were we when we played them? What was happening in our lives while playing? The cultural climate of the time. Even something as small as the time of day we played a specific level. These legitimately do personalize a game to each player. The way you think of Half-Life, how it feels to you, is probably a bit different than how it feels to me. For instance, some of you probably love the tone of the in-game plot, whereas I think the stuff happening beyond the player's experience paints a much more interesting picture. That's how games are personalized, how we consume them, given our individual experiences, personalities, our immediate environment, and what our lives are like. By the way, did any of you get that intro to Half-Life 2 where G-Man yells at you?
Go fuck yourself!
Sheeple. This is the name given to a particular NPC model. Sheeple is a low-resolution model of a City 17 citizen when viewed from a distance. The name most likely refers to the idea that this model is meant to be cheap in terms of computing resources, and is of a person, or people, sheeple. However, what if there's something else going on with this? What if this isn't just a way to cut computing costs for systems back in 2004? What if this entity is actually something in-universe? Could this human-like being be the Combine replacing humans? What if, in an attempt to make a working population, but without the resistance of the human condition, Sheeple are being created to take over what's left of the human race? Think about it. What good are citizens who still haven't become Combine soldiers or stalkers? They're just potential resistance members. Perhaps the Combine, while augmenting humans, is also studying them to make clones, albeit simple, low-effort ones that exist purely to serve as a replaceable workforce. After all, the Striders are a recreation of an existing race. What if Sheeple are the recreation of humans? Chell is the last human on Earth. This one, unfortunately, has some basis in canon. No matter if the ending of Portal 2 takes place 50 or 50,000 years after the events of the first game, that means that it's been at least 30 years since the end of Half-Life 2 Episode 2. It's completely possible that humanity has been snuffed out by the Combine. Even if the Combine were eradicated, could humanity still survive with what little resources are left 30 years down the line? Or if it has been 50,000 years, if what was left of humanity in Half-Life 2 is enough to repopulate the planet. It could be that Chell has been put on the surface of a barren world, one where she will wander for the rest of her life, not another human in sight. The Earth that Chell ascends to could be an empty one. Half-Life 3 is in G-Man's briefcase. We've reached the hard-hitting subject. If Half-Life 3 is indeed in G-Man's briefcase, we'll most likely never see it released, given that G-Man is a hard man to track down. After all, he can manipulate time and space to his whim. Perhaps that was what the Combine were trying to do in Half-Life Alyx, imprison him and coerce the release of Half-Life 3 from his briefcase. That's right, Alyx Vance was actually the bad guy. She let G-Man out of the cage, and thanks to her, now we'll never get the third installment.
We happy? Vincent! We happy?
Yeah, we happy.
The Resistance cannot win. On a more serious note, this is the most likely outcome of the human struggle on Earth. The Combine is a multi-dimensional, technologically advanced empire that has taken over and enslaved races far more powerful than humans. They devastated and took over Earth in 7 hours. They suppressed the ability to reproduce, which means that any and all Resistance members who die, that's a permanent number loss, at least until after Half-Life 2. Abyssal 3 had the most realistic outcome of the fight. The damage the Resistance has done to the Combine is minuscule. For all intents and purposes, humanity is delaying the inevitable. Unless they can close off the entire universe to Combine teleportation, their fate is ultimately sealed. And perhaps we already saw the fate at the end of Portal 2, a lifeless planet whose inhabitants have been eradicated by the alien empire, now left to exist as a reminder of the endless cruelty of the Combine. Half-Life 3 cancelled due to temporal...
Time, Dr. Freeman? Is it really that time again?